Virtual reality is a relatively clear topic, despite me rambling about it for several videos already. But AR, augmented reality, is a very blurry thing with various realizations and numerous applications. That's why we've decided to make a separate video about it, which promises to be rather intense and busy, so make yourself comfortable. Today we'll be talking about non-existent virtual stuff that can be found around us. We have lots of material and very little time, so without further ado, what is this augmented reality? Unlike VR, which completely immerses the user in the digital world, AR only brings its elements into reality. Imagine that you have a 3D model of, say, Mario running around on your table. Well, you can interact with it through the screen. We managed to touch base on the very first example of such technology in our first video about the subject. Just to reiterate, it was the Sword of Damocles from 1968, which allowed you to see geometrical shapes in the middle of a real room. Since then, augmented reality has been developing either in parallel or hand-in-hand with virtual reality. It is believed that the first one to think of practical application of the new technology was Dan Raytheon. In 1982, he invented a system called radar, capable of showing the weather and the movements of air masses and cyclones. By today's standards, it's not exactly AR, but weather forecasts had a huge step forward in terms of presentability. I guess I'll skip all the prehistoric devices. If you're interested in the full story of the development of the technology, let us know in the comments, we'll make a separate video. Though I'm pretty sure it'll hardly have any views, so I take my words back. In this video, I'd really like to tell you about the first practical uses of AR, and about games, of course. One of the first attempts to make something game-related was a port of you won't believe what game. The first Quake, my all-time favorite. It was a very strange technology developed by researchers from the Australian laboratory called Wearable Computer, which appeared in 2000. The name, as it should be, was AR Quake. The essence is as follows. You have a helmet which digitizes the environment around the player by putting textures and everything, and then spawning enemies. The player sees streets and buildings, but the game knows that here's the floor and there's a wall, and combines it with reality. In a rather shitty and twitchy way, but still. Another downside was having to carry the computer around on your back. But come on, the year was 2000. But they had already learned to bind virtual elements to a real surface, which is one way to do it. Towards 2010s, attempts to make AR games began to multiply. In particular, developers paid a lot of attention to portable consoles. For example, the PSP had a plug-in camera, which was used for AR purposes in a series of games called Invisimals, the first installment of which came out in 2009. It told a rather fascinating, though a bit childish, story that there are numerous invisible creatures around us. Because of that property, they got the name Invisimals. By an incredible coincidence, you could only see them through the PSP camera. What happened next was pure Pokémon, except that the game's plot was a bit more intense than the Pokémon tournament arcs. But it should be noted that, while keeping the same gameplay formula, the series tried its best to both develop it and utilize augmented reality. For example, catching Invisimals was like a whole unique minigame. First, you had to look for an object of a specific color, because different creatures were hiding against different backgrounds. And then you had to dodge the projectiles, by which I mean actually dodging them with your own console. Blow into the microphone, shake the console, whatever you like. The same with the combat. Each creature had 4 attacks and 1 block, but even with such a modest range of actions, you still had to make even the feeblest attempt to fight. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot the most important thing. The key object in the game was the so-called trap, a piece of cardboard with a special pattern. By its position in the frame, the camera was able to understand where the action of the game was taking place. Thus, you could play on the floor, on the table, or even build yourself an improvised movie set and watch the battle unfold in your own arena. The use of all kinds of drawings or markers in general is a common enough technology for AR. Many applications use it to work properly. For example, the built-in AR games application for Nintendo 3DS worked in the same way. The basic 2011 console came with a strange set of cards, which at first glance just looked like some fancy extra paper. But the fact that 3DS now possessed a camera had to be justified. So when you launched the application and pointed at the cards, each of them activated a mini-game. For example, a shooting gallery with targets or a fight with a dragon. As in any proper masterpiece, there was a fishing game. Otherwise, tech demos, what else is there to say? Apart from games, which we'll definitely come back to, AR has also been actively used for utility purposes. In this regard, Google Glass glasses have made quite a fuss. I mean, imagine, remember that. It's 2014, when suddenly the good old Google comes on stage and says something like, "Here we have glasses, but with a display like an Iron Man." I'll be honest, I wouldn't mind one of those even today. In reality, however, well, imagine a pair of glasses, or rather just the frame without the glass pieces, which has the functionality of a smartwatch. There you have it. The augmented reality elements were displayed through an optical prism above the right eye and could be controlled either by voice or with a sensor on the temple pad. And as much as you'd like to imagine yourself googling information, navigating the map and making video calls on the go, Glass's capabilities were far from limitless. It was capable of taking photos and videos, messaging, displaying the weather forecast, audio text translation, and a bunch of other useful things. Now, if you've seen the previous videos, you've probably already guessed that I'm going to start complaining about the price. And I will, because at the start they were sold in a limited edition for $1,500. The modern version of the glasses also costs more than your average assistant gadget, to put it mildly. A little earlier, in 2013, the ambassador of Android AR games came on stage, the loved and hated Niantic Studio. Technically, they started their experiments even before that, but their app called Field Trip was just a virtual guide that uses geolocation. On the other hand, the Ingress game was already a full-fledged AR project. Its story would easily take up a separate video, but I'll try to give you a quick rundown. The world got infested with special exomatter, like clots of energy. This exomatter accumulated at humans' points of interest, from famous sites to literally anything, even a local post office. These points became portals through which an alien race of shapers could come to Earth. These guys greatly fostered the development of mankind, but possibly for the purpose of getting highly developed slaves. And I hope you've been listening carefully, because the gameplay is based on all that crap. There were two teams, Enlightened and Resistance, Green and Blue, Smurfs and Frogs. Players were having fun hanging out in real places, visiting statues, museums, and all sorts of other things. Yes, Ingress actually made you pick up your ass and carry it to the city center. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, players would go to the points of interest so far away no one even knows about them. Players would go back and forth repainting these points in their own colors and connecting them to form fields. The two factions were at war not only in the game but also in real life, often forgetting that it was just a game. However, if they were so fond of it, it meant that Ingress was actually exciting, and that's what truly matters. In 2016, Niantic unleashed a game, news about which annoyed the ever-living crap out of absolutely everyone. In a nutshell, Niantic decided not to reinvent the wheel and send players to the same map with points of interest from Ingress. Pokémons would spawn next to them, similar to the Exomatter, while players had to catch them using a neatly done minigame of Pokéball throws. At first, that was pretty much it. Pokémons could be placed in gyms, analogs of portals, and then you could fight with them, but the only reward for that was the unimportant in-game currency. But since then, the game has evolved, and received an actual gameplay. Pokémons now had to be collected for fighting bosses and other players. A bunch of events were added, as well as rare shiny versions of Pokémons, the ability to carry them around the map, and many more. It's also worth saying that in addition to geolocation, another AR element was the ability to show a Pokémon in a real location. First, it was just a model against the background, but later, it acquired the ability to take real surfaces into account. You could also interact with the model, for example, feed it or play with it. It was pretty useless gameplay-wise, and the implementation was not particularly convenient. However, on the plus side, there were whole social media accounts full of cool photos, so let's consider it a photo mode. The success of Pokémon Go contributed to the release of a whole bunch of clones, but I don't even know which one is worth mentioning. So if you'd like a video about them, you know where to find me. in the comments. Yay, I did a mini review on Pokemon Go! I mean, that same year of 2016 saw another peculiar piece of tech, this time from Microsoft. I'm talking about the HoloLens glasses. Officially, what they show is called mixed reality because of the ability to directly interact with virtual objects. But the line between the two concepts is blurred, the issue is debatable, the glasses are interesting, the video is mine, so I add what I want to. HoloLens are essentially a hoop with lenses, through which the user could see everything that the developers want him to. The hoop also had cameras that tracked the surrounding space. By that I mean that, simply put, the sound in the device could mimic the direction to sort of dispense from a virtual source. Greater technological sophistication made it possible to make not only features for work, like browser window output or Skype, but also actual video game ports. I think the porting of Minecraft was the most anticipated. The demo looked awesome, to say the least. Imagine being able to explore the world and create, but say right on your living room table. But unfortunately the HoloLens weren't that marvelous, and Minecraft's port never saw the light of day. Portal, on the other hand, was successfully ported, and it looked really futuristic. As for the glasses, their biggest problem was the same, the price tag of $3 though they were promoted as a gadget made for business rather than for entertainment, so we won't be able to try AR of this level anytime soon. All the more since today full-fledged augmented reality games are more of an exception to the rule. Since the mid-2010s, the video game industry has been more interested in VR, and thankfully, at least there, we can see some progress. We'll discuss it next time. As for augmented reality, it remained a niche entertainment in some implementations and a business tool for the rich in others. In a nutshell, that's about it. Now, as usual, I invite you to leave a like, ring the bell, and share with us in the comments how you like this branch of development of the video game and tech industry. Until we meet next time, see you soon!